Good afternoon and welcome to the panel discussion Rewrite Her Story Towards a Gender Equal World, which has been brought to you by Plan India, a leading NGO working on girls' rights, and Twitter India, and also courtesy to Soho House for providing us this location. Before I begin, I would also like to share that today is the National Girl Child Day, an initiative that's been started by Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India in 2008. And the whole purpose of having this initiative was to create and promote awareness around the inequalities that girls face in our society. It is of course an undeniable fact that gender inequality is an urgent mandate that requires our immediate action and affirmative problem solving so that girls do not face any discrimination. And also it is a given fact that all the SDG goals that we have cannot be achieved until and unless gender equality is at the core of it. And to discuss this today, we have amongst ourselves some of the boldest change makers who have shattered glass ceilings, who have silenced naysayers, who are champions of gender. And it gives me immense pleasure to welcome all of you. And I would like to introduce Tahira. Tahira is a writer, a professor, and a director. And we have Kubra, who is an actress. She's a TV host and a model. We have Shagufta, who's heading public policy and government with Twitter. And of course, to my left, we have a very young entrepreneur. She's a stylist and a classical dancer as well. And of course, Asif Mohammed, who's the executive director of Plan India. Now, to begin, my first question is to you, Tahira. In your opinion, do you feel that female storytellers, filmmakers, and content producers do not find funding because the entire creative and the funding mechanism is controlled by men?
First of all, you're a classical dancer.
I was like, wow.
Kuchipudi. Yes, Kuchipudi.
That's amazing.
Second.
I will be
I'll
there.
share a link.
Please do.
Okay, done.
Done.
Okay, that's nice.
Coming back to the question, I'm fairly new to the business, and I've seen lesser number of technicians, yes, in terms of female directors and DOPs and other technicians as well. But I also see there has been a drastic improvement. So I just shot my last short film right now, which I did. It predominantly had a female, all-female cast, including the protagonist and the cast. But it was not a deliberate effort. I'm not that sort of a feminist who would just choose, tum ladki ho, tum meri team mein ho, tum ladki ho, tum meri team mein ho. It just so happened I came across the most talented people, and for me they were human beings. It was not I'm having a female DOP or a male DOP. For me it was a talented human being who's a part of my team, and I'm so glad there are more women now who are coming up. Having said that, this is one positive aspect that I'm seeing, that the number of technicians and people behind the cameras and scene are increasing in terms of the female gender, but I feel we still have a long way to go in terms of storytelling. So this is where I'm also seeing there is a sort of a hitch. So there are not many takers, excited takers for female-oriented scripts. And that's half of the gender that we're talking about. Yeah. We are not telling stories about half of the gender, half of the population of a country and the world. So I just feel there is a need for improvement. We have a couple of films, but we can actually count them on our fingertips where there's a female who is a protagonist. I wish to make, create and see many more films where there are women who are in charge, because they do a lot of stuff in real life too. ऐसा नहीं है कि वो एक दो चीजें करती है, right? There's so many stories, so many. So I just wish that that happens one day.
But do you think it is still difficult for females to find producers for these kind of stories, if it's a female storyteller?
Honestly speaking, like I said, thankfully our industry is really, it's progressing, and I don't know if it's a female storyteller who's facing a problem rather than not a good story. In the sense, I don't know if a script is dependent on whether a female has written it or a male has written it. I really hope that's not the case. And so that's like really going to the dogs, honestly speaking. It really can't be, ये script अच्छी है, अच्छा औरत ने लिखी है, ये मर्द ने लिखी है, औरत ने लिखी है, बेकार है. It can't be that, right? It can't be that. It's the content. So I don't think this question, I don't know whether it's valid enough for me, because I never thought that that's how the world views. I think they come across a script and it's a good script irrespective of who's written it. And really I wish we reach a day where it normalizes emphasize is it should not be a male has written or female has written, best male director, best female director, best director, best writer karo na. Matlab, sorry, I'm very passionate about
No,
it.
that's, I think that's a very pertinent comment. But there was a research which was done by Gina Davis Institute, and they found out that, you know, when a female producer or a storyteller looks for financing, she definitely finds difficulties, and it is about cross-cutting, not only about India. So, but I think you have a valid point that it's the content which should talk about and not the gender.
Yes.
And I think once that happens, then we automatically lead ourselves as, you know, a part of the population, as a segment of the population towards equality. The point is, what kind of stories do we want to tell? And it's not about, hey, my story has more, you know, power or weightage because I am from a particular gender. And that should not be the motivation. The motivation should be, what's the story I want to tell?
Exactly.
And then, so, I mean, I think we've seen this, you know, over a period of time where if you want to see a change, then you be the change. You know, if you want to drive a particular thought forward, then there are two ways to do it. One is that we sit back and say, "Ye ho nahi raha hamare se, this is not being given to us, we are not being in a place of privilege or a place of, you know, dialogue." Or you create that dialogue and you create that discussion, you be your own propeller. And I think, as Tahira said, she's, you know, much younger in this business, and yet she's been able to move forward. And from what I know of the work that she's done, from her first short film, Toffee, to, you know, whether her creation right now or the film that she's going to make, I don't think her motivation has been like, hey, I am a female director, a female storyteller, so give me an opportunity. You know, so if you want to bridge the gap, then go ahead, do the hard work.
Yeah,
No, fair enough. My only male guest
What a handsome man.
in this awesome panel is, so I'm going to ask you a very difficult question, Asif. In the recent report released by World Economic Forum, which is on Global Gender Index 2020, India's rank has slipped from 108 to 112. In fact, we are lagging behind our neighbors such as China, Nepal, Bhutan and Bangladesh. So my question to you, why has that happened and how can we improve our ranking? So what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think the gender report, the index report, basically works on 4 key parameters. So economic empowerment of women, political empowerment of women, health and education. So these are the 4 broad parameters on which the indexing is done. Unfortunately, while we have steep challenges when it comes to questions around political participation, because the number of women in active politics remains to be very low, and the same is true with the economic participation. Our workforce participation rate in India is very, very low compared to many other countries. It's inching up, but it's too slow a progress to feel very comfortable about, and that's where organizations like PLAN and many other civil society actors and the government is kind of very keenly trying to see how it can be bolstered. The reason why we are slipping is that we are not making much progress on some of the key indices that are responsible for making progress on that index. Take one example. Let's look at the child sex ratio, which is a critical indicator of how many girls are being born in a country compared to boys. While again we have made significant progress, but recent studies have shown that it's still far below. It's about 931 per 1,000 males, though it's better compared to what it was in the census in 2011 from 917. So you still have a situation where girls definitely are getting discriminated at the time of birth, as they are growing up, and when they are ready to take on economic opportunities, participate in the development of the country as economically contributors to the nation. And that's where I think we are not so fast in terms of bridging the gap, and that's the reason why we are so low.
And how do you see that improving, like this schemed gender ratio that you just talked about?
Yeah.
So how do you see it improving?
See, there are several ways, and some of the things which we are doing in Plan India, but there are several other actors, particularly the government, when it kind of launched the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao initiative in 2015. The whole ambition was that how can we make a positive dent to this kind of a scenario. So the most important thing is celebrating the girl child, that how are we celebrating our girls inside the families, outside the families, within the community, in the schools, at the workplace, in community gatherings, because it is of critical significance that all of us strongly believe, and we are able to really smash the patriarchal notions that a girl is lesser than a boy, because I think that is where the big mindset change needs to happen. Unfortunately, it still persists in several quarters. There has been, again, as I said, we have made progress, but it's very, very slow.
More needs to be
more
done.
needs to be done. The second big thing that we need to do is to kind of ensure that the law of the land, which is, we have a very progressive law on, which is called the PCPNDT Act, which needs to be enforced in not just in letter and spirit, as we all say that. Because until unless that is done, if you have people who are misusing technology or ultrasound machines, if you have families who can easily go out and get those kind of sex selective or sex determination tests done, and then go out to abort the child just because of the gender, I think we will not be able to make any progress, and therefore it is of critical importance that the law is enforced. So that's where we are working. Celebrate the girl child and enforce the law.
Thank you so much. Now, Parnia, my question to you. Now, referencing to the same report, as Asif had just mentioned, there was one domain which is the economic participation. And interestingly, the same report also says that it will take us 202 years to bridge the global gender pay gap between men and women, which means that lesser women are getting into the workforce and women in leadership positions are much more slimmer. Now, you are an entrepreneur, a fashion entrepreneur. How difficult was you to, for you to set up onto this journey? And my second question to you is it easy being a lady boss?
No, but it was very enjoyable. It was very difficult for me to start, not just only because I was a girl, but I was very young. And I think when you are a girl and you're young, it's like a double whammy. It's they don't take a lot of girls seriously, but they especially don't take young girls seriously. So I would set up meetings with certain partners, say a courier company, and I had some people consulting with me. So I'd walk in and they'd be like, "Where's your boss?" And I was like, "No, but it's me." So initially, I think what I was doing when I was setting up my company, I was constantly just trying to prove myself and constantly like just fighting that battle. No, like, please take me seriously. And I think the only way to be taken seriously as a young girl is to have something to show. So once I was able to cross those barriers, even though it was a little difficult, build my company, start my company, and then the company started getting some traction. And that's when people automatically started taking me seriously because I had some work to show for myself. You cannot, I think as a male or a female, you cannot expect anybody to respect you or take you seriously unless you don't put in the work, like Cobra said, or show what you've done, which I think is fair. But yes, I do see my counterparts, my friends who are men who are starting companies who are not having these issues, you know. So it's okay though, I don't mind, because I don't mind having to prove myself. It makes me work harder. It makes me, it makes me want it that much more. And I work very well under pressure. So I think because it suited my personality, I was fine with that. But having said that, this whole pay disparity, see, whenever there are fewer people in a workforce, because there are such few women, that means such few of them even reach the top, you know, and because it's not normal, there will always be a disparity, because it's like you see a big company and 20% are women, that's a big deal for them. And I think that's really sad. And I think really if you go down to the crux of why this is happening is obviously years of this whole theory where this whole like these gender roles, you know, from back in the day, our dadi pardadi's times, that women should stay at home, they should be homemakers, and men should work. It's these breaking these gender roles that have been defined for us for so many years, and also now I know so many women are breaking it, but it's just going to take that much more time. The second thing is, I think safety. It's just a simple thing like safety. Like if a girl from Gurgaon cannot leave her office and take an Uber, take a cab to her house without getting molested, or the fear of getting molested, then how will she want to work? How will her parents feel comfortable sending her to work? So if you are not going to bring up your sons with a mentality that women are your equal, they have to be respected as an equal. You don't see a man just randomly molesting a man or misbehaving unless there's somebody's provoked. So, but they have no problem misbehaving with women, a lot of these men, and that's because they've been taught that women are inferior. So our, like these mothers, people we grow up with, have to teach their sons that your sister is your equal. You will not tell your sister what to wear, what to do, where to go, because they grow up like that in their own family environment. They think that when they go out they can treat women like this, and I think until women don't feel safe going to school, a lot of girls have to walk to school. A lot of girls cannot just take a driver and go. I mean, and they feel very unsafe, and a lot of parents don't send them for this reason. You know, so until the safety factor is not tackled, starting from the grassroots, from the mothers who are raising their children, it's not going to be equal ever. You know, so I think safety is a very big deal. Even, say, the staff which work in houses and hotels, a lot of the girls are dropped with drivers back to their homes, just so they are able to work, because a lot of the hours are late, you know. So you have to provide these kind of privileges. Like for example, if I'm running an organization and the girls have to work after a certain amount of hours, I should be providing them a safe way to get home.
Yes.
And so I'm encouraging them that please don't leave work. So I think organizations have to keep this in mind. Of course, parents and especially mothers have to keep this in mind. Another thing really important, I'm seeing this, I'm realizing a lot of things more now because I think I'm growing up finally. So is that a lot of men and boys, even if you are not saying that you are above your sister, or it's just learned behavior. As a woman and as a wife or a mother, if you are taking a certain amount of discrimination from your husband and your in-laws, your child will just see that and imbibe that as a normal, as something that's normal. So it's not even about what you say, it's a lot about what you do. So when you are in a family unit, and I see this even across not just a lower economic, you know, group of people, but even the higher, I see that a lot of it is learned behavior, because women are taking a certain amount of discrimination from their families, from their husbands, and the sons are growing up thinking that, okay, I can do this to my wife. This is normal to snap my finger at my wife, you know. So they have to, it's something as that small to something really big, you know. So it just starts at home, and I think I'm just ranting, but you know,
no, I
get the point.
No, I think you made a very you made a fair point about you know, safety being a huge concern, and you know, we have been reading and some of us have been facing, we have faced those situations, and definitely, as you mentioned, I think the social conditioning is what needs to be tackled, as Asif had said. You know, it's like the conditioning that promotes this kind of, you know, discriminatory practices needs to be tackled right at the core. We'll come back to you more on that. Now my question is to you, Kuku. You are a sorry, I'm so obsessed with your character out there, Kubra.
She's obsessed with me, that's all I'm saying.
I think
so with which gender would you like me to speak to
absolutely.
you?
I think, you know, it takes a lot of courage, you know, to play such a path-breaking role. I mean, it's one of its kind. I think the whole world acknowledges that that was one of the boldest choice, and the choice must not have been easy for you, and to be playing that with such convincing, you know, attitude out there. Not for, I read a lot of reports where people were asking you about your gender. So, yeah, I mean, it was that convincing. So, so Kubra, my question to you is that during this process and after as well, was there any incident, you know, that kind of really made you, you know, worried about playing this role as a third gender? I mean, you know, how did you really feel about it? How was it taken in your family, among your peers, you know, the outside world? Like,
since your question has so many layers, I'm going to start from the very top, and the answer to asking me if I had any inhibitions or any fear in playing this character, straight out, no. Because the way I looked at it was work. And as simple as that. For me, it was an opportunity. I am here in this business to create something and find opportunities. And when this opportunity came my way, I think I would have been more than, I think I would have just been silly to say no. And I wasn't. I did want to take up every opportunity that came my way. And I don't mean this just by playing the character of Cuckoo who's transgender. No. For me, it was work 10 years ago, for example, when I did my first film. I have no backing from this industry. I am here standing alone. My first role that was offered to me was in a huge, big budget Salman Khan film where I had to play a maid, and I said yes. And I did that part because for me, it was very clear, I don't know if I'm going to get another opportunity as an actor. So if that's what I want to do, then I need to constantly work towards it. And I think I'm just extremely lucky, extremely blessed that I was at the right place at the right time, and I got this audition that came my way, and I did well in that audition. I got it purely on merit, and it was work for me. So that's one. Two, when we speak about, addressing a particular profession, like for example, I don't mean to, point this out to you, but I will. Like you asked Purnia just now, was it difficult being a lady boss?
Yes.
She's a boss. End of discussion. So why do I need to be a female actor, a female director, a female DOP? No. So I'm not necessarily a female actor playing a transgender. To badi baat hai. Because in the West, we've seen several actors play transgender who are male. More importantly, I knew of male actors who were preparing to play Cuckoo, and then there was something about the sensibility of this character that struck with the makers and said, no, if we need the right emotions to be portrayed, we need a woman who's strong to play this character. Also, we do not have an ample amount of representation from the transgender community as performers, actors in our country. So I think for me it was an opportunity to represent, but not represent a woman in a man's body, a man in a woman's body, a third. I was not trying to make no statement. I was only trying to do my job. So yes, I only made use of that opportunity the way it came to me. And finally, as far as what my family had to think, my mom has seen me working for the last 15 years, if not more, because I have been working to run myself, run my family since I was maybe 16 years old. So my mom has seen me through this entire journey. And literally when the show released, she was sitting in her bedroom. My brother was sitting in the living room. They watched the show simultaneously on their different screens. And when they both finished, they walked out and they literally went like, wow. And my mom called me and said, I'm proud of you. So that's it. It's done for me. Do I need an approval? I got the approval that means the closest to me. That's my family. And as far as the troll patrol is concerned, I enjoy it. Please ask me whatever you want, because I don't think anything. It's entertaining because I am one of those people. If you tell me something silly, I will respond with something even more silly, and I love it. Like I'm not somebody who goes like, ignore and move on. So I'll give you back a fitting reply. So one of my favorite trolls was when somebody said, "Madam, are you male, female, or 2-in-1?"
Gosh.
Or 3-in-1, something like that. I said, no, I'm the 3-in-1 that your mother uses in the kitchen. And I was very happy, and I gave him a gold star. And I said, this is how it is, man. Like, it's one of my most favorite responses. So it's about how you deal with that pressure.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thanks. Shagufta, we have seen a foray of digital mediums and, social media, and youths are using these platforms to not only to connect, but also to voice, to shape opinions and share their likes and dislikes. But, a general consensus is this, that we see less of girls participating in these conversations. Either they are silent, they are lost, or they are limited. So, Do you think like the digital literacy, could be enhanced so that more, girls and young women are encouraged to come to a social media platform like Twitter? If so, then what are those, literacy tools that Twitter uses?
Sure. Thanks. I think that's a wonderful question. And you're very right in saying that today we are living in, what one would call an information age. Perhaps there's so much to read, there's so much to hear, there's so much to see for all the youth and, of course, women in particular. I think in this information age, it becomes all the more critical to have relevant technology, enhanced capabilities, and, more access to digital literacy and similar mediums. As Twitter, what we've been trying to do is we believe that educators and teachers actually hold the key, because they have been pioneers in terms of actually working with a lot of successive generations. They also have the ability to sort of re-engage, reignite the minds of young people and, get them to change their thinking and, encourage a lot of online behavior which is safe for them as well. So to that effect, we've been actually working with various organizations to make sure that we work with these educators. I'll just talk about two initiatives. One, we actually worked with UNESCO at a global level, wherein we are creating a lot of tools and resources with them, which encourage what we call as critical thinking, which is aimed at fostering a lot of new learning styles and skills, and also, perhaps engage in behavior, active citizenship online. A similar initiative which was driven from the very state of Mumbai was a program called EduTweet, wherein we partnered with an organization called the School Leaders Network. And there again, we actually partnered with teachers and educators. And the idea was, one, how do you use Twitter more effectively? Two, how do you actually talk to the young children and students to say, what is it that calls online safe behavior? What is it? How do you be more respectful towards everyone that you interact with in an online space? So I think that's where we are putting in a lot of efforts. We are also trying to see that, how they could connect with more educators, perhaps also start using Twitter effectively in classrooms. So, if you want to actually start a discussion on a particular topic, say environment, let's understand what are the different communities talking about this subject. And therefore, you get to know different viewpoints, different sort of scenarios, and you're able to, enhance your own skills. And through this particular program, we actually reached out to more than 650 plus teachers and educators, and we of course continue to expand on this. I think at a ground level, we are also working with a lot of journalistic NGOs as well as a lot of news and media organizations like Bloomberg, Viacom, to ensure that there is credible content which reaches out in the field of sports, media and entertainment to all our users. So we believe that, through our programs in these areas, we are somewhere seeing a change in a lot of women, in a lot of young girls now taking to our service to be able to actually express their views fairly.
Ma'am, may I please ask a question? Thank you.
Yes.
So just yesterday there was this really, I don't know, this article that left me pretty shattered. It was by CNN talking about how there are troll armies that are political in nature and who target women specifically. And the name calling that happens on Twitter just because you can, and most of these are bots and faceless, engineered thing. While you are speaking with educators and like global change makers, what are you all doing to kind of curb that with the political? Because somehow right now in our country, everything political is everything offensive or not. And if you are saying something that is right according to certain people and wrong according to certain people, then it's easier for some reason, and this is cited in the article, and how women in general, how women in particular are being targeted. So what are we doing in terms of, I don't know, teaching, educating, political, what is it called? Political forces, political conglomerations to fix.
So I think one, of course, I can't talk to the exact report and findings
I
in
will
terms of,
show it if you want.
because I think there have been some releases yesterday, but
Yes, and it's been appalling.
Yeah, so while I'm not aware of the exact numbers and figures, I think from a Twitter perspective, what we are doing is, one, we do a lot of workshops and capacity buildings with regards to even political constituents, to one, again, make them, more aware and conscious of what is acceptable on Twitter as a service. I think because what we as a company have committed ourselves is to improve the health of the public conversation. And we are doing that at two levels. One is using our own proprietary technology to actually proactively surface abuse. So in fact, today we are able to, proactively remove a lot of this, almost 50% of this abuse gets removed proactively. The second part is we are also giving our users a lot of more product features and facilities, the options to actually start, you of course have the option of muting conversations, you can now you have the option of using a lot of advanced filters to, sort of just hash out, I'd say, words that you don't want to hear in the conversations. We also encourage our users to report, because unfortunately what we've seen, reporting is not something that's really happening very actively.
I report all the time.
Because what we actually, and I'd like to make a point here, what invariably happens is that people take screenshots, they post about it, but they don't actually report it on the app. So while of course we are taking more proactive steps on our front in terms of technology, but yes, we also need our users to make use of these tools and services that they have on the platform itself, and sort of, start recognizing these tools.
Thank you.
Yeah, with that, Kubra, to you, we have all, I think, witnessed that you're so bold, you are unapologetic. Have you always, and you speak your mind, and I think you stand by the issues that you believe in. My question to you is like, have you always been like this, or your journey throughout, has made you who you are today?
This is so funny you're asking me this, because Natasha, who's here, she's my manager, she asked me this question yesterday. And she said, were you always like this? And the answer was no, because until my 7th standard, I was a complete shutdown. I was bullied, I didn't have a voice. Yeah, I couldn't speak to my mom. Magar 7th standard ke baad, when I was in my 6th standard, going to my 7th, I went into a personality development program. So it started when I was very young, I'm not talking about going today and kind of reforming yourself, but I was very young. So it was easier to kind of, undo the jigsaw puzzle and fix it right, and say that this is what you should be okay with and this is what you should be buoyant towards. You shouldn't be always under pressure of what people say. And jo 7th standard ke baad jo main pheli hu na, uske baad there has been no stopping me. And I think for me it works today, because that has become my fuel, and that is what drives me forward. Also, I don't know if it's a good thing to say, but the older I get, I've come to realize, the relationship that Purnia was speaking about how a man and a woman in the house should be respectful of each other, and what you see is primarily what they are doing, to each other in terms of respect, in terms of love, in terms of responsibility, and the attitude that they have. I'm actually so glad that my parents decided to go their separate ways. Okay. Because that allowed me to choose the personality I want to be like. And that's what allowed me to choose or follow the way my mom led her life. For no other reason. It was just me deciding out of my mind that I want to be like a certain person, and that person is going to define the attitude I choose to inculcate. So I think it just worked for me in that sense.
Okay. You have been pretty silent, Tahira.
I'm listening.
And she doesn't even smile, right? She just goes like.
I've been listening. There's a whole lot of knowledge coming in.
My question to you is that, you made a short film called Toffee, and it's fantastic, and I, suggest that everybody watches that movie. I think it's on Woot?
It's on Eros now.
Eros now, okay. But the subject of your short film is very unusual.
Yeah.
For somebody wanting to do that, is that your first directorial debut?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a tough one, because the subject is child marriage. Yeah. It's a very hard-hitting subject, we all know. So what made you really pick up this issue?
Before I get down to this, I've been itching to talk about one sweet article that I sort of read yesterday on Twitter. It came in The Guardian. And it was about when Sir was talking about participation, and so were you, and then so were you. Why are there no, like you said, the women should be participating in different forums, whether it's political, economical? Why don't we have so many numbers, whereas we can actually, we know that these men have achieved, why haven't there been any women achievers? So the article goes on to explain it's as simple as the women do not have time for themselves. Neither does the society, neither does the family. They do not allow them to have a moment to themselves. Even as simple as they gave me an example of, they wrote an example of Sigmund Freud. Now this guy, his wife Martha Freud not only laid the clothes for him every day, but even put toothpaste on his brush.
It's too much.
But you see what all she has given up.
Yeah.
So when you give up and you hardly have any time to focus on yourself and your talent, obviously you will not see that participation happening. And that really comes from conditioning. Like you're talking about the stereotype, yeah, I call it the conditioning. So every generation has had this sort of conditioning and the conscious level with which they operate. Now happily, I think it's really nice that with every generation, the conditioning is people are breaking the conditioning and they're letting the conscious level surface. So, you know, like my grandparents, for them, education from my mother, education was really important. She's the only postgraduate and she comes from a very small town in Punjab and she's the only postgraduate in her family. So her family must have broken the condition that women are not allowed to get education after a certain age. They broke that condition for her through the conscious level. Now my parents, obviously they would also have the conditioning of bias, which they don't even know. Both my parents have always been working. But I could observe, like when you observe in a house that my dad is doing this, my mom is doing this, she's doing a job, but she's also doing this. So it's my conditioning, but my conscious level will say, I'm not going to do the same thing for my kids. So now as simple as when I have a son who's 7 and my daughter is 5, even though I can dream to have a gender disparity between the two of them, absolutely. But as simple as like just about a day back, me and my son, we were playing at night and my daughter says that, I need to go, I told my daughter just to go and change into a night suit. She goes inside and obediently, and 2 minutes after she comes out crying. I was like, why are you crying? She was like, why is this rule only for me? Why do you get to play with him? And I was like, I could have easily said it's not about gender disparity, it's about taking out time. But I said it's good that the woman, she's voicing her opinion and it needs to be heard. I was like, both of you get out. Both of you go and change. So I was really itching to sort of tell you about Sigmund Freud, imagine. And coming to toffee, it comes from a very personal experience. Honestly speaking, I think the small town that I was talking about, it's in Jalandhar, it's called Basti Sheikh in Punjab. And my summer vacations used to be there. And I went from city, which is Chandigarh. Now I don't have a brother or a sister. So spending time in late 1980s or 90s in a small town with no internet and no Wi-Fi and nothing and no sibling to play and incessant power cuts, I just used to go out playing. And that's where I met another girl. There was another 12, 13-year-old and her name was Ritu. And now I didn't care at all which family she belonged to, but she belonged to a very, very poor family. Her father was a daily wager at a chappal factory. And in fact, she had to wrap toffees every day and that would fetch her 100 rupees for her entire family. And I was like, okay, I'm going to come to your house. I'm going to wrap the toffees with you, not because I'm feeling bad for you, because I just want you to finish this quickly so that we both can do our own thing. So every day I used to sit and wrap those toffees with her and then we used to have fun. One summer vacation, I couldn't go to Jalandhar, and the next year that I went, I couldn't find her because I lost my friend not only to marriage, but she also became a mother. And that sends me shivers down the spine now. At that time, I was too young to even understand that marriage hogi and how do you become a mother. And that has left something deep in my heart. And I know that I'm going to address it someday. And I'm so glad that my first short film talks about that. But it's not in a very morose manner. It's about celebrating childhood, celebrating women, like you said, celebrating childhood. So that's what the movie is about. And it's sad that I just read the statistics and it says that 1 in every 3rd girl child married girl child in the world belongs to India. First of all, it's not an India world issue. I just wish that there are no child brides in the world.
Yep.
And we need to work on the statistics, and 2030 is the goal, I guess. So I think we all should really work towards it and have no child brides in the world.
अरे यहाँ पे इतनी उम्र हो गई शादी नहीं हुई
Thanks. Pandya, since you belong to the fashion industry, you yourselves have been a stylist. We see a lot of stereotyping when it comes to fashion industry, and this is across all genders. There's a lot of body shaming. There is a lot of perpetuation that takes place in terms of a body type, a skin color, etc. Do you really see this changing in the next few years?
Yes, I do see it changing. I see it changing because ever since I started working, I would say I started working like 10 years ago after college, internships, till now, I've seen a huge change. When people were so openly would discriminate against skin color and bodies, even something as simple as Victoria's Secret fashion show was huge when I was in college, and all my guy friends would look forward to it because there are all these hot women walking in their lingerie. And now, after all these years, the show has gone off air because now the world trend is changing. Now you no longer celebrate women who are a certain size or a certain body type. Now plus size women or curvy women are celebrated. The whole world view on body shaming and on how women should look is changing. So I'm just give one example, but I've seen this from when I started to work in the fashion industry till now. There has been a huge change, like simple things like I think 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I went to a fashion show of my friends Shiva Naresh, and they had a plus size a model in a bathing suit in India on the runway. Not a bathing suit, she was in a bikini, and she was so hot that I started following her, and I was like, I need to work with her at some point because she was owning it and she was gorgeous. And now I do see that a lot of things India catches up. I'll just talk about the fashion industry a little later sometimes, and I think now it's come here, this whole concept of how this is not okay. Because of social media as well, the positive impact of social media is that people can voice an opinion on brands when they are being completely biased, or they're trying to shame a certain body type, and they are answerable. And brands have become very conscious because they don't want to start any kind of havoc on social media or get a bad image, So I think I do see that changing, which is really good. It's taken some time and it's happening slower maybe than the West, but it is happening. So at least I'm happy for that. And I just wanted to add to something that Tahira had said. This whole concept of women don't have time. Do you know why that is? I feel it's because they're shamed. When women take time for themselves, even if I'm taking time to go, so I'm a dancer, and I mean, I've grown up with the most liberal parents, but I have seen this. If I want these 3 hours to dance, if I want to take time for myself, if I want to do my own thing, you're shamed, A lot of times women are told that, how can you leave your husband alone? How can you not personally put that nivala in your child's mouth? And so a lot of times...
If you're not shamed, you feel guilty.
They're made to feel guilty.
Exactly.
They're made to feel guilty, even if they don't feel guilty, because it's very normal taking time out for yourself. It's very normal doing things for yourself as men do, and everyone should be able to do. But women are guilted into saying that now that you're married, now that you have a child, okay, big deal if I'm married or if I have a child. Does that not mean that I can take time out for myself? I can work, I can have a life, I can be my own person, but they're guilted. So imagine in this social strata of where we belong or my friends belong, or what I have seen, I've seen women seriously guilted. I have been victimized in this regard, not a lot, but a little bit. So I can only imagine where women are not given education, where they're grown up very sheltered. I mean, they probably feel terrible for even having a chocolate for all I care,
Yeah.
for all I think. It's just, that is the problem. Yeah.
I think that's a very
Yeah.
poignant,
Valid,
you know, nuance that you've picked up.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, because my next question is around that, and this is to Asif. What Panya has rightly mentioned, I think at times women feel guilty even about having that time to themselves. Now, in order to change that, what is the role of boys and men in this conversation? You know, are they also important to be sensitized? What is your, you know, opinion about that?
Want to know?
You tell us.
Yeah, of course, of course. See, gender equality is about working with men and boys as much as it is about working with girls and women. So I think it's very critical that if we have to create a gender equal world, that's what we are our conversation here today is about. It is about how is it that we are engaging men and boys in a very, very robust, strong and active way. So let's take the example of equal wages for men and women. And all of us are well aware that across the board, and it's not just in India, it's also globally in many countries, they had to make laws as recent as last year in some of the developed countries to mandate equal wages for men and women for the same type of job. Now, one of the biggest barriers, and we have a project in one of the districts in UP, where we found that it wasn't so much about women. The women were not aware that they had that as an entitlement. They always believed that getting lesser wages to men is normal. Whereas the men believed the same thing, that they needed to get more wages for the same work because they are men. And that was seen as normal. So we said, no, that normal has to change, and it has to change not just for the women, but it also has to change for the men. The men have to live with this belief that if there is a work being done, both either it's a man or a woman, they are entitled to the same wages. And it really worked wonders, in the sense that in that district things started looking very different. More than 12,000 women and as many men joined the whole initiative as part of the effort, along with engaging employers, and things have started changing. So the role of boys, men in bringing gender equality is, I think, it's supreme and very important, very critical. And and they need to play the role not from a patronizing kind of a stance. It has to be an organic engagement in the gender equality processes, be it talking about laws, be it changing social norms. So it's not that, okay, it's a favor that a boy or a man is giving because they are just stepping back and allowing a girl or a woman to take the stage. No, that's not about it. It's a right, and that right is available to the woman the day she was born. And so I think that is the mindset, and that is the practice that has to be brought about. And at Plan, we are making our best efforts to make that transformation happen. And we are hoping that soon we will have a world which is gender equal, and our campaigns are also oriented towards that.
Yeah. Thanks, Asif. I still have a lot of questions. I have, Twitter questions for 3 of you, but we are running short of time. So, like a rapid fire, I'm just going to ask one question to each one of you.
One word.
Yep, absolutely. So, Shagufta, how can we realize girls' rights? So, what is one positive action that you recommend?
I'd say one, of course, take on to social media, tweet more actively, absolutely be safe and feel safe to actually voice your opinion. You should, as Twitter, we feel that, of course, there will be, always voices. It's like a real conversation, right? Our service is actually reflective of what the real world looks like. There will always be some element of, offensive or conversation that you don't want to hear. But that's the very reason why we are doing so much in terms of giving.
So participate more in social
Yes,
dialogue.
absolutely. Okay. Feel free to voice your opinions.
Kubra, to you.
Oh, the same question?
Yes, same questions to all of you.
Okay. Well, then, in my opinion, it is about be the captain of your own ship.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah. So take destiny in your own hands and strive it. Yeah. Okay, that's a powerful message. Okay. How about you, Tahira?
I feel communication and expression, whether it's Twitter, whether it's even in your family, whether it's as small as my 5-year-old saying that I want the equal right as my brother. It's about expressing, it's about saying, and other people acknowledging it, and not just, you know, pushing it away. And so we need to talk, people need to listen, and there has to be freedom of expression.
Great. How about you, Penia?
I would say starting at home. I think, as they say, charity begins at home. I think all actions should begin at home. If in your home environment you can create a more equal and a fair upbringing for not just your immediate family, but even for the people who work with you, the staff, it trickles down to everyone. So I think start at home and try and be as gender sensitive and fair at home, I think.
Great.
Yeah.
How about you, Asif?
I'll take on from the earlier point. I think social media, it's a very powerful medium. It helps amplify the voices of girls and women enormously, incredible kind of a tool that's available. The only thing is that it's still not reached a large number of women. How is it that we can take those media, the social media or any platform, Twitter, whatever we are talking about, to as many women so that they are able to voice, and the platform helps amplify the voice, one. And the second part is that girls' education. We have to, as a country, invest in education, because without education they won't be able to express, to use platforms like Twitter and other such tools that are available for the betterment. So
I think thank you all so much. This has been a profound discussion, and clearly change can happen at 3 levels. I think as an individual, we have heard all our bold change makers saying that it is I myself who can drive change, and as parents and educators we can definitely support those non-discriminatory behaviors that take place in our homes, in our workplace, or the public space at large. And of course the society and the government also needs to do their bit and come about supporting the larger discourse on girls' rights and gender empowerment. And with this, I really want to thank each one of you for this lovely discussion, for taking out times. And we have promised these 3 people who have posted their questions to Kubra, Tahira and Penia. So I'm going to hand it over to Twitter, and maybe we can tweet to you, or Plan India tweets to you, and if you could answer them. Because of paucity of time, of course, we couldn't take them. And with this, I want to thank Twitter India for really being a partner with us, in this discussion, and I hope this is an ongoing partnership and just not.
Absolutely. Yeah. And actually, it's a privilege to partner with Plan India, and we really want to, sort of work together with you in generating this kind of safe and positive conversations for women. And thank you to each one of you. You guys have been wonderful. And absolutely a pleasure to meet each one of you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And I also want to quickly thank Soho House. They provided this location as
what a great
courtesy.
place. Come to Soho House, become a member.
Wow, how much are you getting?
And also the live streaming, is being done by Make It Happens. There are a bunch of, young, talented, creative people who have come together, since this is a conversation about young people. So let us all, applaud. And for all our audiences who are listening to us for more than 1 hour, we spoke a lot.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike. I have got a lot of questions for all of you.
Yeah?
Yeah, but yeah. So one last request. I know you have to go. Can you just take our group? Yeah, sure.
Can I wonder what it is?
Wait. Kubra.